U.S. officials tell CBS News that days after the war started, U.S. intelligence detected that China was weighing whether to supply Iran with advanced radar technology. The intelligence suggests the potential for the war to widen beyond the region and an increased involvement from U.S. adversaries. CBS News has previously reported that Russia transferred information to Iran following the outbreak of the war. CBS News national security contributor Sam Vinograd joins us now for more on this. Sam, we don't know whether China ultimately moved forward with the transfer, but why would China want to get involved, and what national security threats does this pose?
Well, Lindsay, it is unsurprising that China considered this potential transfer. For context, China is Iran's largest trading partner. There have been previous reports that Iran, ever since this conflict began and well before that, transferred the Iranian regime missiles, other forms of weapons, as well as critical technology to advanced Iranian goals on the battlefield. In this conflict, China's goal, perhaps before things spun out of control vis-a-vis the Strait of Hormuz and global energy markets took a tailspin, was to provide Iran with capabilities to more effectively counter the United States. However, now with oil prices as well as other commodities prices skyrocketing, China does have an interest in tamping down the conflict. And I do think that's why China reportedly did play a role in encouraging Iran to accept the deal that was announced last weekend or a few days ago for a temporary ceasefire, such that longer negotiations could unfold.
There are a lot of unknowns regarding this deal, but President Trump says Tehran has agreed to everything. Of course, leaders in Iran are already disputing that. So how are we to understand what's happening behind the scenes?
Well, in my experience, these negotiations don't happen in public. Both sides are going to be sticking to maximalist positions and trading behind the scenes various asks, carrots, and sticks. So President Trump has indicated that the U.S. has gotten everything on its wish list. It is unlikely that that will be entirely true. The U.S. will have to yield some ground to Iran because, to be candid, Iran does have some leverage right now. They have some leverage because of their effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And Lindsay, even with the statements on Friday by the Iranians that the strait was completely open to business, that just is not true at this time. There's still a trickle of traffic through the strait, and Iran is still controlling who's leaving and who's coming in.
So the president says the U.S. will be retrieving all nuclear dust from Iran. What does that entail?
Just retrieving an enriched uranium stockpile, which I think is what President Trump is referring to, is a complex undertaking. In this case, that enriched uranium stockpile is likely deep underground. So the United States first has to clarify the location of that entire stockpile. They then have to be able to get to it safely. From there, they need to be able to package it and transport it without any leakage. So just understanding how to get in safely and how to package this material will be a complex undertaking. The U.S. does have experience doing that, but in previous cases where the U.S. was involved in removing nuclear stockpiles, that was a weeks-long endeavor with the cooperation of the host country at a minimum, and often with the cooperation of international experts. So there's a lot of steps to take to remove this quote-unquote nuclear dust to ensure that there's no unintended consequences during that potential removal.
Sam Vinograd, thank you.